Stephen Horahan here at BrandMasterAcademy.com, and in this video you're going to learn the skills and traits that you need or that you need to develop to produce brand strategies and become a successful brand strategist. Now, the transition from brand designer to brand strategist is usually a natural progression. It certainly was for me, and the way it happened for me, I was designing brands and I was more and more curious about what the complete brand building process looked like, and that led me down the road of strategy. So I really dug into what strategy was, what I needed to understand. And the more I learned about strategy and the more I began to develop brand strategies, the more I realized that I needed some more skills. I needed to develop more skills than I already had coming from my brand design role. So I want to go through these skills and these traits. Now, some of them cross over between brand design and brand strategy, but I want to go through each and every one of those so you know the skills and traits that you either have or that you need to develop to become a brand strategist. Number one, verbal communication. Now, brand designers are usually good at visual communication. They're really good at taking an idea and making it visual and communicating that through logos or brochures or websites. But when it comes to brand strategy, verbal communication is increasingly important. Now, you need to be able to speak to your clients on a higher level about their business and about the challenges that are in front of them. But you also need to really go deep into the conversations about what brand strategy is, because there is a lot of misunderstanding about brand strategy, and it's part of your role to educate your client on the different elements of brand strategy and really articulate the value of each of those elements so that they understand what it is they're paying for. They understand why they're paying a premium for a brand strategy as opposed to just going for a logo. So verbal communication is very important. Number two, empathy. Now, I really started to understand empathy from the point of view of the audience that I was trying to connect a brand with. So obviously you create an audience persona and you really need to understand the journey that that audience is on, really understand the challenges and the pain points. So you really need to develop this sense of empathy to put yourself in their shoes and understand what they're going through. But then that translates into your client communication. When you develop this sense of empathy and understanding, then you can transfer that skill to the conversations that you have with your clients. And this is where I really felt the difference for me in the relationships with my clients was when I really learned to use empathy as a skill. So showing your client that you understand what they're going through at the moment, showing them that you understand their business model, that you understand the challenges lying ahead of them and in front of them, and really to empathize with them and to show that level of understanding. Because if they feel understood, they'll feel a sense of trust towards you, and if you earn that trust, then you've broken down those barriers and you've paved the way for them becoming your client. Number three, humility. Now, as designers, we all have a little bit of ego about us, about the work that we do and the role that we play in our clients' businesses. Now, some designers have a bigger ego than other designers, and I've met designers whose egos were too big to fit through the door, and they wouldn't make for good strategists unless they learned to drop that ego or to check that ego at the door. And that's exactly what you need to do, because it is not about you. It's not about your design style, about your preferences, and about holding out on your client for what they want. You really do need to focus on the end result. Yes, guide them in the right way, but make sure it's about, first of all, them and what they want and their customer who you're trying to connect with. So check that ego at the door, forget your preferences of style, and make it about the final outcome. Number four, authority. Now, this is something that you will gain over time. Once you transition from a designer role to a strategist role, you can't expect to have this sense of aura and this sense of authority about you immediately. It's something that you need to develop over time with experience, and the more strategies that you produce, the more experience you get dealing with clients, the more authority you're going to have in your voice through explaining the different elements of brand strategy, explaining the value of these elements, and really getting across that you know what you're doing. So authority is really something that you need to take the time to work on, to be conscious about when you're having those conversations with your clients, but it's something that will get better over time. Number five, copywriting. Now, copywriting is a very, very important part of the brand strategy development process. And I know a lot of copywriters have their hands on a brand and are part of the brand development process. And I often get them asking me, do I need to be a brand designer in order to become a brand strategist? And my answer is always no. They're actually at an advantage having strong copywriting skills getting into brand strategy, as opposed to designers who have no copywriting skills getting into brand strategy. So if you have copywriting skills, then take the time to develop them and really, improve those copywriting skills. If you've no copywriting skills at all and you don't think that you could ever develop those skills, well then look at partnering up with a copywriter or outsourcing to a copywriter and developing a relationship there. But you really need to have a close relationship with copywriting to be able to develop an effective strategy. Number 6, responsibility. Now, when it comes to strategy, you are serving your client on a higher level, and chances are they're going to be paying you more for those services. So you really need to assume more responsibility with that as well. So if your client has misunderstood something, well then assume that it is you who miscommunicated and not them who misheard what you said. So really assume that responsibility. If something's not going right in the process, if something's not going right in the relationship, well then assume it's your fault and make sure that you focus on getting a positive outcome rather than going into nitty-gritty details and arguing finer points of detail. Own the whole process and understand that you are serving your client on a higher level. They are paying you more for your service, so own the situation and take that responsibility. Number 7, ignore the haters and develop resilience. Now, if you do want to grow your profile as a brand strategist, then you need to start having opinions. You need to start having opinions on the industry of techniques and processes and your idea and what you believe in, and you need to put them out there. You need to put them out into the wider world so you can start to develop that profile and you can start to make a name for yourself as a brand strategist and really raise that profile. But when you do that, you will have people that will follow you and you will have people that will put you down. So learn to ignore those haters. You will get haters if you put your opinions out there. If you take a polarizing point of view and you challenge the status quo, you will get people who will try and call you out. And no matter what your opinion is like, no matter how solid your opinion is, no matter how good you are, you will always get those people. But remember, try and learn to be resilient and let it flow off you like water off a duck's back and just push on and really develop that resilience and confidence in your own ideas and your own opinions. Number 8, be reliable. Now again, when it comes to strategy, you are serving your clients on a higher level. You're certainly not going to be developing strategies for a few $100s the way you might have done for a logo in the past. So you want to increase your reliability. If you say that you're going to turn up for a meeting, a Skype meeting, well then be there. If you say that you're going to deliver at a certain point in time, you're going to deliver on a certain date, well then deliver that and build that trust over time, because the more trust you build, the more reliable you are, the more you will build that brand name in the marketplace. Number 9, develop your people skills. Now, as a brand strategist, as I said, you will be talking to your clients about their business, about their challenges, and you really want to develop those people skills so you show that empathy and understanding and build out much deeper relationships than you might have done with just your design clients. And this goes beyond just your client relationships as well. This goes through to all of your suppliers. So when you think about printers or designers or copywriters or developers, if you really want to build out a branding business, then you're going to need to engage these types of people. You're going to need to build those relationships. So you're going to need to have those people skills in order to do that. Number 10, marketing. Now, marketing is something that you don't usually have a great understanding about when you get into freelance for the first time, but when you realize that you can't just rely on referrals, then marketing becomes more prevalent and more pressing. You really need to kind of dig into what that's all about. But when you become a strategist, you really need to understand the journey that your customer is on. Now, when they come to you, they're looking for a brand, and if you produce a brand strategy for them and a brand identity and a website, that is great, but you need to understand the full journey that they are on. Even when you provide those deliverables to your client, they're at a point where they need to introduce their brand into the marketplace, and they're going to need marketing. So this doesn't mean that you need to become an executioner of Facebook ads or of Google AdWords. You don't need to be a content writer or an SEO specialist, but you do need to understand all of the different avenues that your client can go down, and at the very, very minimum, have a conversation with them about their options. Number 11, sales. Now, me personally, I don't like sales. I don't like sales in the traditional way you think of sales, this hard selling and this pressure selling, but I do understand the value of the sales process, and I have taken the time to develop my sales process into more of an educational process. So I teach my clients about the value of brand strategy and the brand strategy elements and what that can do for them. And if I do my job successfully, then they'll have their own epiphany about what they need. So that, although it is a sales process, it's not a high pressure sales process, it is still part of the process of bringing a lead into a position where they are going to pay me for my services. So I understand what that position is, I understand what that role is and how important that role is, but I do it in a different way. I do it through education. But at the very minimum, you need to understand that sales is part of building your branding business, and you need to incorporate that into your business and into your processes. Number 12, authenticity. Now, as modern day consumers, we have a nose for authenticity, which means that we're able to sniff out a phony a lot more than previous generations gone past. And this is true in branding, in marketing, in business, and in our personal lives as well. We're able to identify and see if somebody is putting on a facade and they're not being themselves, and we're not really attracted to that. We don't really like that, and if we see somebody like that, we tend to distance ourselves from them. Whereas on the other hand, if somebody is truly being themselves and they kind of lay it all out there, and they're not afraid to show their insecurities, then we can see that they are truly being themselves, and we tend to gravitate towards those people a bit more. So take authenticity into your own business, take it into your business in the sense of dealing with your clients and showing who you are, but also take it into your business in terms of the brands that you develop, and really push that authenticity with your clients, that they need to build a brand that is authentic. But I'd love to hear from you if you have any challenges around the skills and the traits that you need to become a strategist. Is there anything on that list that you see and you think to yourself, there's no way I could pull that off? Or are you going through this transition at the moment, and are you developing out some of these traits and these skills? And if so, how are you going with that? Let me know in the comments below. If you've got any specific challenges about any one of these skills or traits that I recommend that you develop if you want to become a brand strategist, then let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell as well. It will let you know when I've got new videos coming out. If you want more tips and techniques like this, well then head on over to BrandMasterAcademy.com and sign up for the newsletter. It is free, and I will drop those tips and techniques right into your inbox. But again, I would like to hand it over to you. I would love to hear from you about your experience when it comes to that transition from being a designer or being in another role where you're building a brand to a brand strategist, and let me know your thoughts and your transition and your experience in the comments below. But until next time, please brand like a master, and I will see you in the next video.